I'll be talking to you about the aspiration that maybe we all have to take care of your health and happiness. But before we get into this, I want to ask you two questions. One is, who does not want to be healthy and happy? Okay, so basically everybody wants to be healthy and happy, keep that in mind. Second question is, who wouldn't mind to be helped, to be empowered a little bit, to take care of yourself, maybe just that slightly tiny little bit better? Who would love to have that? Who would want to be empowered to take care of yourself? One, two, oh, okay, almost everybody, thank you. This is what we will be talking about today. My name is Christophe Choquet. I call myself a health business expert. What I do is I look at changes in society. I try to interpret them, and I try to say what that means for our health and happiness, and then I guide companies in taking the right decision. I wrote a book about this as well, which is called Health Enthusiasm. It explains why are people more than ever occupied with their health, what does this mean for companies and society, for organizations, healthcare organizations, and how can they make their customers healthy and happy. And this is also what I would love to do here today for you all. And if I really would like to, if I want to start explaining to you why today people are more than ever occupied with their health, I need to go back to my childhood. You might remember these gray paper walls. You might remember that TV if you were born in the 80s. And maybe you might remember that person. Anybody knows the name? Jane Fonda. This was one of the first eras, the first decades ever that people were actively involved in managing their own health. They were doing things to becoming healthier and happier, which was very remarkable because, not so long before that, we were still selling cigarettes like this. And even only a couple of years before the 80s, you can still buy cigarettes bedside of the patient, right? Ever since the 80s, however, we saw the number of people smoking decreasing radically. And this is a data from 2018. It goes even to 14% right now. So how does that come? How does it come that suddenly people are more than ever occupied with their health? Because think about it. Everybody's always been, worried about their own health. But in the times of Asclepius, they were bringing offers. In the medieval times, they were praying to the gods, because that was the only thing that basically they were able to do. As from the 60s onward, what we saw is that there were more medical interventions, transplants. Also, the contraception pill came out in the 60s, right? And then in the 80s, it was the first time that people were able to do something themselves. And the reason why they were doing it is because suddenly cardiovascular disease is raising up. Cancer was basically a word that only maybe you heard the first time then, right? AIDS was a big health scare, a bit like we had now with COVID. And so we saw people more and more taking actions until to the point of today where I say we live in a health enthusiasm world. It's also the name of my newsletter. And I try to explain today with 5 different evolutions how it comes that we are today in this health enthusiasm world. 5 evolutions, which are also 5 opportunities if we want to think about redefining self-care in Europe. So I'll start immediately. Start with the technological evolution. We live in a time now where we have technology at our disposal that 15, 20 years ago was only available for the professionals. Running is the oldest sport, probably the easiest sport to do, but people have always been, having difficulties to persevere. When the first running apps came to market, we had some support. There were tools that actually help us persevere. If you look at what we have today, if you want to become a runner, you have all the tools at your availability to become a runner. We can become who we want to become. And that also changed how we did healthcare. There was a time where people were running with these kind of tiny, tinny boxes that contained pills. And the only thing that patients needed to do was remember to take the pills. Then came Dr. Google in the early 2000s. And what that changed is that people were more informed, right? Before even going to a doctor, not always a good thing, but before going to a doctor, they already had a diagnosis. They had already a lot of information. Nowadays, doctors will give you websites to go to just to be empowered as a patient, right? But today what we mostly see is that patients more and more want to be actively involved in their own health. This is a radical evolution. And what we see is that these medical pill boxes have been transformed into digital apps. What we see is that during COVID, this device was nowhere to be found because everybody wanted to have one. Everybody wanted to measure their saturation of oxygen in their blood. 150, maybe 200 million people are running around with medical devices on their wrist. Probably some of you have them on right now. So we see more and more of these devices coming. This is a chatbot which helps you potentially even diagnose or have an early diagnosis, knowing whether you need to go to physician or pharmacist or whatsoever. Technology is helping us empowering ourselves. And I'm not even talking about what is yet to come. Microbiome analysis, genetic analysis. This allows us all to be taking actions more than ever before to have an impact on our own health, to be health-enthusiastic, as I like to call it. But this would never happen if there wouldn't be a psychological evolution, because people need to want to do it, right? And this is also something that we've seen happen in the recent, I would say, 7 to 8 years. Because if this is a simplified version of the Maslow pyramid, you might notice the hierarchy of needs. If you look at the functional and basic needs, or the emotional and social needs, in society, Western society, in Europe, mainly today, most of these needs are largely met. I'm not saying fulfilled, largely met. Which means that people are looking for other things. They have different types of needs, and they are going to that next phase in the Maslow pyramid, which is the self-actualization needs. People are becoming more aspirational. And you can see that in the way people go about, how they retreat, for example, if they go retired. Because when people used to retire, the first thing that they said was probably, yeah, I've done my share now. I mean, I've worked my whole life now. I'll do what I want to do. I'll go travel. I do that hobby. I mean, this is my time now. I want to be that version that I always wanted to be. If you look at youngsters today, and probably many of you as well, they don't wait until they are 65 or 70 years old to do the things they wanted to do, to become the person they wanted to become. They already do something with that hobby, maybe make a company out of it. They already go on a trip, maybe they take a sabbatical. This is what people do today. They want to become the best possible version of themselves. They have a lot of aspirations. And when I'm talking aspirations, the feedback that I often get is, yeah, sure, I mean, we want to fulfill the best possible way our lives, etc. And it's all about improvement. We always want to improve ourselves, which is not a good thing, right? If you always focus on how can we improve ourselves. But life aspirations today is more than just improving. It's also preventing things to happen. You want to avoid having stress, for example. This could be a life aspiration. You could take measures in your life to have less stress. This is a life aspiration. Or you can say, I want to accept things. I have a disease, or I have a certain skin condition, whatsoever it may be. We today, as a life aspiration, can have to accept things the way they are. Or we could be focused on enjoyment. These are the 4 big aspirations, life aspirations that we see, and there's a couple one underneath them if I go into detail, which I'm not going to do here. But the companies that have understood this really well, and this shows also the power of self-care, are the companies that are selling supplements. And I know Halion is one of them, and they're probably not on them. What I did here is I took supplements for hair loss, which is prevention, supplements for more confidence, supplements for more relaxation, or supplements to have more energy. They all fit in that criteria of life aspirations that we all have. And I took whatever supplements, because that is also what is happening today in society. People don't know what supplements to take. And very often they don't know how to combine them, right? But the good thing is, and I'm just focusing here on the good thing because we will discuss about the dangers and the opportunities that we have. The good thing is that more than half of society is proactively involved today in taking decisions that impact their health and wellness. We basically have gone from a pure reactive situation to a more proactive situation where we want to flourish. And this is the psychological evolution that we have seen. Of course, if 50% of the population today is interested in taking decisions that impact their health and wellness, there comes an economic evolution as well. Because this is so big that actually in 2015, Trend Watching, which is one of the bigger trend watching companies in the world, said self-actualizations, those aspirations, will actually be the driver of consumerism. And so people will decide based on their own aspirations what they will buy. And Trend Watching probably saw this graph. This is the Google searches of self-care from 2008 to 2015, if I'm not mistaken, right? Self-care in this sense, how can I take care of myself? It quadrupled in 7 years. And if you look in the recent years, it doubled again. So this is how important self-care is for all of us. People are searching online. If they're searching on Google, it means that it is more and more important. But we see it also in the size of the wellness market. Of course, wellness has to do with saunas, wellness has to do with feeling good, face mask, personal care, but it also has to do with alternative medicine. It also has to do with how we build our houses, right? And this has become a 4.7 trillion business, which is 4 times as big as the whole pharmaceutical business. This shows how important taking care of yourself has become. Nielsen, which is one of the biggest consumer data companies in the world, they said this in 2021. Health and wellness is the single most powerful consumer force in the world. Because consumers are buying based on what they want to become. And they were not alone. Accenture, Fast Company, The Future Laboratory, Ideal, all big companies in the world say exactly the same as was mentioned in my book 4 years earlier. That, just kidding aside, of course. But what we see is that a lot of products today are focused on health and wellness. Ventilation systems want to make your places healthy spaces. Car industry is very much focused on not as much anymore on car driving or driving experience, but more and more on health experiences. They are building cars that make you feel healthier. Fragrances are becoming functional. This is a fragrance that actually has the scent of woods, and it could make you feel less stressed, for example. But there's the non-alcoholic brands. There's even wine that is specifically made for people that are running. You have Deleuze Ahold, which is putting out, this loyalty cards with more discount if you buy cheaper products. Disney is putting out Zen animation movies, which keeps children calm. It's really focused on ASMR kind of videos. So what we see is this whole notion of taking care of yourself is becoming very present in areas that we never thought of before. So it's really another evolution that adds to it. It's becoming really popular. And I would say the fourth evolution has made it really, really popular. And it's something that some of us might have thrown in a bin, and which I'm happy to pull out again, but that was COVID, of course. Because COVID in 2021, what it did is that people were very anxious. We were living what I call FUD times. There was a lot of fear, there was a lot of uncertainty, and there was a lot of doubt. And what do we do if we are very uncertain in the information world that we are living? We go online. And I don't need to explain to you where exactly on that line March 2020 is, right? This is what people did. They went online to find information about health. They wanted to know, they wanted to understand what they needed to do. And what we saw is that during COVID, 65% of people were regularly taking health and wellness decisions. This is how important health has become, and this is how people were going about their own health as well. And so the graph that I showed you earlier was actually, it became even bigger after COVID. And we saw that in many different areas, which basically we never thought about. But people, they jumped the rat race. They didn't want to work anymore, maybe for big corporation, because they wanted to take care of themselves. We saw companies entirely looking after their employees and helping them to take care of themselves. And we saw people not wanting to be in hospitals anymore, but to be monitored from home, because they felt that self-care, the way that they could take care of themselves at home, is better than in hospitals. So we saw self-care entering even all different types of areas which never happened before during that period. And then finally, the fifth evolution is a social evolution, is the way that we all talk about health. 30, 40, 50 years ago, we probably wouldn't share our own health matters. Maybe even if we had a question, we wouldn't even ask somebody else. Right now, it's just one WhatsApp away. Imagine, I'm sure every one of you had asked one particular question about your own health or somebody else's health through WhatsApp. But there's also, of course, the social media. And there's a lot of Facebook groups that exist, Serenity exists in Europe as well, where patients gather to share information amongst them. I think there's about 2,500 breast cancer Facebook groups available, where people share their information, where people learn from each other. This is how we deal today with our own health. And I saw a recent study coming out just before I finalized this presentation, saying that 40% of chronic patients actually change their behavior when they see something on TikTok. This is how we deal. This is how we go about information. This is how we deal with our own health. Is this a good thing? We'll debate about it. But what it shows is that people are looking for information and that people are really trying to impact their own health. What we even see more, and it also started in the 80s, very briefly, but people are changing physicians, or people are going to have a second or even a third opinion. I work a lot with insurance companies. It's the one question they always ask: how do we need to go about that? I mean, people are going for a third, sometimes even a fourth opinion. Do we need to reimburse that? But what it shows is that how people go about it. What it really shows is that people want to have an impact on their own health. They want to be involved in the decision making. And this is a recent study as well. It says that 83% of global citizens would like to have more control over their health. And so what it does with the healthcare system is that where we used to think that the physician is at the center of the health universe, this is no longer the case. We are living a Copernican health revolution because of that social evolution, because of the way that we go about our own health. And actually, the patient is putting himself at the center. One of the reasons for that, by the way, is also because the healthcare system is also not easily available. Because it's hard to get an answer from a physician, because it's hard to get an appointment with a physician. And so they are looking for information elsewhere, which might give a lot of opportunities beyond the physician, of course. I love this example. I really wanted to add it in, but this is Walgreens in the States, and they realized that the patient was at the center. What they did is they actually redesigned their whole setting, and they, instead of having to go to a counter and talk to a pharmacist, the pharmacist is running around the patient, literally. And so the patient can go to a pharmacist to ask questions. Of course, to pick up medication, there's always a counter, but if you really want to talk about your health, the patient's at the center and the pharmacist is running around him. So these are, in a nutshell, the 5 evolutions that I've seen. There's a technological evolution. There is the psychological evolution that we need to have that impact. There is an economical evolution that came from it. There is also the health revolution that we've seen, the health scare with COVID, and there is the social evolution. As a result of this, what we see is that people are more than ever actively involved in their own health. They're taking actions themselves. This is the graph if you would schematically present it. This is what I call health enthusiasm. People are enthusiastic, they have the aspiration to impact their own health. And that's why I very often, if I speak, I try to avoid the word healthcare as much as possible, to be honest, because I don't like it. It's too much an on and off switch. You're in the system or you're out the system. You can talk to a physician or you cannot talk to a physician. I don't like it. That's why I use health enthusiasm. Because people are constantly evolving or constantly impacting and talking about their health. It's the aspiration that we all have to take care of our own health and happiness, even if we are not really sick, even if it's only a minor ailment, or even if we only try to prevent from being sick. So the question is, and this is the guidance that I give, or the almost, I hand it over to the panel here. What does this mean for self-care? If we look at self-care as being, we want to empower people. So I explained to you, people want to take care of their own health, but we need to empower them, right? And so the real question is, what does this mean if you want to redefine that role of self-care? How can we empower people even more in Europe? And I showed you 5 evolutions, but there's also 5 opportunities. And this will be my last slide. If we look at the technological evolution, I told you there's a lot of devices out there, which also means there's a lot of data out there. In fact, there's more data outside of the healthcare system than inside the healthcare system. It's debatable whether it's well labeled, whether the quality is today enough, but it will be better than it is in the healthcare system. So how can we unlock the potential of data that is out there? Related to the psychological evolution, what we see is that people have more aspirations. And so which means that we can go further than just sickness. We can think about how can we bring holistic and preventive care. People are open for it. People are wanting this. 48% are already doing it today. So how can we really help them? The economic evolution, all these brands, what they will do perfectly, probably even better than the healthcare industry, is actually they will provide an personal care, an individual care like never before. They have a customer centricity focus like we don't have in healthcare right now. And so this might be an opportunity and inspiration even to think about how we can adapt this, how we can even maybe work together with them. The health revolution, what we saw, people go online massively. They went to TikTok, they went to whatever kind of sources. but they were not always able to interpret the information. Health literacy was a big issue. Not to mention the number of information out there that was not fact-checked, that was basically not correct. So there also we have a big responsibility and a big opportunity to change that. And then finally, talking about the social change that we have, the social evolution, people want to talk about it, they want to reach out to people, they want to find people to talk to, and very often the healthcare system, as in the physician, is not easily attainable. And so the question maybe could be, what is the role of a pharmacist? What is the role of a health coach? There's many other stakeholders that we might want to involve if we think about helping people taking care of themselves. This is the most important slide. This is also my last slide. My name is Christophe Choquet. I'd like to inspire you, and this is pretty much what I wanted to tell you.